Everybody witness that speed is red on audio. Let's go and speed on camera.
God help me not to gush like a little girl.
Good luck.
I'm so happy.
Have you met yourself?
That's the Serenity Prayer.
Amended. Are we good? Hello, I'm John J. Thompson, and on this episode of the True Tunes podcast, we will give you an exclusive advance listen to one of the most exciting new albums of 2024 with a multiple Grammy-winning vocalist, one of the most influential artists, producers, and thinkers this show has ever encountered, and a multi-instrumentalist and hyper-talented producer. I had the distinct honor to sit down with gospel music legend Russ Taff, our good friend and hero Steve Taylor, and the producer of Taff's upcoming album Cover Story, John Mark Painter. Taff's album, which you will soon discover is a stripped-down, roots gospel and soul classic, finds the artist crawling inside an unlikely collection of well-known songs by artists like Depeche Mode, U2, Bill Withers, Duran Duran, Prince, Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, and others, and making them his own.
I was a sailor, I was lost at sea. I was under the waves before love rescued me. I was a fighter, I could turn on the thread, and now I stand accused of the things that I said. But when love comes to town, I'm gonna jump that train. When love comes to town, I'm gonna catch that flame. Maybe I was wrong to ever let you down, but I did what I did before love came to town.
And coming on the heels of the revelatory documentary film I Still Believe and his recent interview on the Soft White Underbelly podcast, both of which allowed Russ to open up about his decades-long struggle with addiction, self-loathing, and private pain, this collection of songs is especially powerful. Depending on when you are listening to this, Steve Taylor is currently in the midst of a Kickstarter campaign to release a limited edition vinyl record and to raise the funds necessary to promote the project to a wider audience. We wanted to get this show out in time for our listeners to hear these incredible songs and the story and heart behind this epic project so they could get on board and back it. So, come and join me, Russ Taff, Steve Taylor, and John Mark Painter as we sit down together on the campus of Lipscomb University to talk through the whole thing. It all takes place right after this.
The hands on time go round and round. They don't slow down when you lose your way. At every turn, the things you learn, you wear them proud like you wear your name. And as you go on down that road, don't let the dust get in your eyes. It blows in the winds of change. It blows in the winds of change. The winds of change.
Hey, this is Mark Feldbush, and I'm a supporter of the True Tunes podcast. I've been reading True Tunes since it was a print journal and first on the interwebs in the late 90s. When the podcast became a reality, well, I knew I wanted to be a part of this ongoing conversation. I'm glad to say that folks like me and many others support the podcast with monthly donations of $5, $10, even $20 that help to cover the costs of producing and hosting the show. As a thanks for our support, we get early access to episodes and high-quality lossless WAV files of each episode that we get to download. We also have occasional Zoom meetups, some special live streams, discounts on True Tunes swag, and a whole lot more. You can join me and the other patrons by visiting patreon.com/TrueTunes, or you can find the link on the show notes page. If an ongoing patronage thing isn't quite right for you, but you'd like to give a tip to help with the costs associated with this show, you can find links for that at the show notes page. Thanks for listening.
And we're back.
But you can't package fame in some shrink to fit size. You can't market truth wrapped up in a happy line. All that can shake, all shake. All that can quake, will quake. Separate the fact from the fake. All that can shake, will shake. All gonna shake, shake.
Hi, I'm John J. Thompson, and today I am both the host of the True Tunes podcast and the director of music industry studies at Lipscomb University. All of these things come together in this wonderful swirl as I sit down with Russ Taff, Steve Taylor, and John Mark Painter to talk about a fantastic new project that these three people have worked on together, where we get to hear Russ Taff be more real than he's ever been before on a project called Cover Story. Well, thank you, Russ Taff, Steve Taylor, John Mark Painter, taking some time to talk about this very, very cool project. I'm so excited about it. I know everybody else is. So thank you for making some time to do this. Really appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate you very, very much for being here.
So in a nutshell, we've got a brand new record that, Steve, you're the executive producer. Why don't you walk us through what are we talking about today?
So it all started when Chagall Guevara, the band that brought me to Nashville, we did a reunion show at the Ryman Auditorium 2 years ago. And the show went great. And actually, Russ came to the show, right?
Yeah, I did. Me and my daughter.
And so the next night, for people that had paid inordinate amounts of money for good seats, we told them there would be an after party the next night at Jack White's club downtown, the Blue Room. And we told them there would probably be a jam session and we'd have some special guests. And so we invited Russ to be one of those special guests. And of course, I'd known Russ from way back, but Lynn had actually produced
his with Jack Puig.
Self-titled album with Jack Joseph Puig. Dave Perkins had written one of the songs on that album, I think. And so there were a lot of connections. John and Russ went to church together. So we put a band together made up of members of the Perfect Foil and of Chagall, and they backed Russ up. And I should have known better, I guess, but I just assumed, since I hadn't heard Russ sing for a while, that probably his best days were behind him. And he just tore the house down with a version of Charlie Peacock's Down in the Lowlands.
Which he had also recorded.
That's right, that he also recorded on that same self-titled album. It was just like he took us all to church. The crowd was so into it, and it went for 7 or 8 minutes. At the end of it, we all just thought, Russ needs to do an album that captures that. And what would it be like if we tried to bring the same kind of mojo to a new Russ Taff recording that Rick Rubin did for Johnny Cash in his American recordings? So it wasn't long until someone who was also a friend of Russ stepped forward with a budget to make that happen. And John really had a vision for what he thought that album should be. And he knew Russ's voice really well. He's, a music student. He loved the idea and the challenge of this. And so the first thing we did was get together around a table, and we just started talking about what would be some interesting cover songs to put together to make this album something interesting and unique. And from there, we just started building out the song list, and John went to work in arranging and producing it. And really, I was just there to kind of help make sure it all came together. I don't know what executive producer
is that all you got?
Russ, before we move on to that, tell me about your experience that night at the Blue Room. What was that? I was there. What was it? What did it feel like to you to be on that stage with that band in that room with that crowd? Tell me about what you remember that.
Well, that Charlie, who wrote the song, he and I were going to do it together. And Charlie gets sick, and he doesn't come. So I was just, Ashley and Kevin Max and others, the great singers and stuff. So I was just going to enjoy the show. But Jimmy came to me, and he goes, let's just do it blues. And I didn't think we rehearsed it. I don't remember if we even rehearsed it at all. And, we been doing this a long time. Okay. And so I do a verse, chorus, and they're starting throwing solos around. And John was playing bass, and the band was just Dave Perkins and all these. And so Jimmy Abegg looked at me and goes, do something. And I said, why? He goes, get out there and do something. Well, I've sang all the well, get out there and do something. So I go out and just start ad-libbing, and then I turn into a Pentecostal preacher and just screaming and singing, and then I started seeing people with their hands in the air, and I didn't know what happened. I mean, I just start doing what was in my gut, and at my age, if you fall flat on your face, you don't care, But it was just a magical, incredible night, and I walked off the stage going, what just happened? It was one of those nights that I will remember the rest of my life.
I wanna be right. I wanna be right. I wanna be right. I wanna be right. Yes, yeah, I wanna be right. I wanna be safe, and I wanna be whole. Be right. I wanna be right. Be whole. I wanna be right. Be safe. I wanna be right. Be right. Touch me. I wanna be right.
So John, I remember hearing about this. You had this idea. Tell me about the history that you had with Russ at church and your idea of wanting to capture that moment, and what did you bring to the table that you're talking about?
Well, he, at St. Augustine's, it's like hippie Episcopal church. Is that a good? That's a good description, right? And so, he would come out and sing acoustic songs. There'd be people, up there playing. He's actually talking about what he's feeling, and I would watch that. And my role in music has always just been looking over people's shoulders and figuring out what they're shooting for. How can I help that happen? I get a rush out of doing that more than like look at me kind of stuff. And so, when I see that, and then what's funny is when I was in school, I used to sit and practice to records by these dudes, and so, when I met them, I already know how their stuff works and how their brains are working and all that. And so, but anyway, I would watch that. I'm like, that's got to get captured. And how come he's not making a record like that? I can do that. So yeah, that was the thing. I just kept telling people anytime I would see somebody, and even did a thing. It was some event in Franklin on Kevin Max's porch. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And came out and sang a song, and I was like, he needs to make a record like that. So I just kept doing that over and over again. And then finally Steve called me, do you want to do it? Like, sure.
Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. I got long to stay.
I remember you and I talking over coffee in the house where my office is, and we both teach classes, and you sang that Russ Taff thing. That, remember we were talking, like, want to make a record like that? It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Tell me about the original thoughts about the songs that were going to come together, and the A&R process of thinking through what to do, and then how did Russ get pulled into those conversations, and How did this whole concept of this particular list of songs come together?
There was a list coming from people that, friends of Steve's. There were a few things that just popped into my head. I was like, this could be cool. And then we would pitch them to Russ and talk about it. And then there was some that he had, and we would just make lists and kind of experiment and look at the roster, But part of my thing has always been, what is the artist capable of doing? What's their strengths? What are they trying to communicate? And how do you make that work? It's a puzzle solving thing that I kind of get a rush out of doing that stuff. But it's fun, and so that's what we would do. We would talk about a song, and then Russ would sing a little bit of it, and I'd listen to him, and I'd figure out what kind of tempos we could do, what the instrumentation might be. That's my world. So,
Russ,
I was going to say too.
Yeah,
I think John really had a specific vision for what Russ needed to do on this album.
Yes, he did.
And a specific vision about how his voice needed to sound as well, that it needed to be really present. And even the microphone choices that he came up with were all built around how do we get his voice front and center and really present. Just knowing what a specific vision John had for the process, I just thought that, man, it would be much better for John and Russ to just collaborate together and get this across the finish line in a timely way. And so I think that helped a lot too.
When I think of you in the city, the sight of you among the sights, I get this sudden sinking feeling of a man about to fly. It never kept me.
And let me say, he's the silent guy in all of this, but I've made a lot of records, and John is probably one of the best vocal producers I've ever worked with, because he knows when to step in, he knows when to stay out of the way. But it was interesting because I didn't know exactly what was going to go. I was singing, John had a drum click and he had a bass, and I had a lyric and I was singing. But I would listen to him, okay, we'll do da-da, we'll have something here, and the horns go, yeah, da-da-da, and so I'd watch him produce, just listening to my vocal and this thing, and it was, well, let me just be honest. This record scared the crap out of me. I've done it a certain way for a long, long time. And I know what mics I like on my voice. I know what preamps I like, and studios that I've used and things like that. But Steve and John had this thing of just raw and real, and so after the first 3 or 4 days, I was way out of my comfort zone, and I was questioning, can I even do this? Mm-hmm. Is this something that when I'm done that I'll be proud of? I mean, because I had in my mind what I wanted, what I've been doing all these years, and the way I like my voice to sound, and and the mics that John had chosen, to me, they weren't flattering for me. But I didn't know what Steve and John were going for. They were going for raw and real, and I wanted, I wanted a reverb and and make me sound
right.
And they were stripping everything down, and I really had one day I flipped out. And I can't do it. I don't think I can do this. What you guys are asking me to do is way out of what I've done before. And Steve said, meet with me. And we came to the campus here at the Imagine House, and I was just telling him, I don't know if I can do what you guys are asking me to do. And he told me, he said, trust me, I won't let you embarrass yourself. Mm-hmm. And I knew John really had a vision for what this could be. And for the first time in my career, I surrendered. I just surrendered to letting go of everything I knew, you know, all of these things I'd built in my head, you know, as a producer myself and all of that. And I realized I'm going to have to surrender for these guys to accomplish what they're looking for. And I've done it my way for so long, and to do it again my way, you know, that people have heard for years. But John and Steve, they knew what this could be. I didn't. I just knew how uncomfortable I was, you know, in the studio trying to sing. But then he began to direct me, and after Steve said, "I won't let you embarrass yourself," I began to relax. And I began to trust the process, because I didn't know how good John was. I had no idea how good he was until I was in there with him, and the way he would capture sounds and of my vocal. And you know, for years, what producers did, and I did for myself, you'd put it as high as you possibly could, and then you scream the whole song. And John and Steve was like, well, the bottom part of your voice has never been looked at and sought after and tried to do. And then as John began to do that, it was like, I haven't heard that part of my voice.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain, it still remains within the sound of silence.
Russ, can you take us back to when you first found your voice? Like, what was the music you were listening to? When do you first remember singing and feeling your voice and falling in love with singing?
Well, mom said I sang my first solo when I was 4, and you know, and I had 4 brothers, and we would sing as a quartet and stuff, and Mom would walk behind us, you know, behind the altar, and when we'd get off her part, she'd help us get back on. But she told me, she said, "Son, when you sing, reach way down deep, because that's where the anointing is way down deep there." But I was young, and I was singing a song. I don't know, I was probably 7, 8 years old, and I felt him while I was doing it. I mean, I felt him, and something happened inside of me, and what was going on in our household with addiction and everything else, music was my escape, and I would just listen to music, and a lot of times just cry and listen to music, and then sing, you know, then sing. But I felt a connection between he and I when I sang.
Don't you know? He put a run in my feet, clap in my hands, shouting in my heart. He took the doubt from my mind, we got brighter. Oh God, louder. I started walking, I started talking, I started singing. Shouting, God said, God said, if we could believe it. God said, I said, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Jesus. Long, long, long. Everybody should have really ought to been there when you set me free. Set me.
See, no newspapers, no magazines, no television, no radio, nothing from the outside world. So all we had for entertainment was Mom's record collection. And she had the Statesman Quartet, and she loved black gospel. So I had Vestal Goodman, and I had Mahalia Jackson, who was Mom's favorite singer. Mm. So I would go between, you know, black and white gospel constantly. But I would sit and listen to records, and and I would cry. I mean, there's intense stuff going on in the house, but I remember Mom had these, the speakers that detach, little bitty thing, and I would lay in the living room floor on the car, and I'd put those speakers right on either side of my head, and I would listen to these songs that were, I don't know, they just transport it. And there's something about gospel music, unlike anything else, it crosses over into the supernatural, in my opinion, that no other form of music can do. But for some reason, gospel, when it's done authentic and real, it connects you with the higher power that created music in the first place. So it was young when I began to feel it. Right. And I never was good at just standing there and singing a song. I tried it in college, but I wasn't good at it. In choir there, and they'd have me do a solo. But when I sang about him, and I, just something happened inside of me.
When you started singing professionally, you were still just pretty young. In college, you were a teenager or something like that?
Well, I had a little band.
Right.
And we were trying to introduce something besides Southern gospel music in George Beverly Shade to our little town, because we were doing contemporary music that none of the churches would let us in, and so we'd play in the park. But we fronted the Imperials. We raised money and brought them in to Hot Springs, Arkansas, and we did 20 minutes before they came on. And
at that point, the Imperials were also coming from the Southern gospel world, but becoming more contemporary.
Yeah,
this
Jesus
is about
made me higher
early
for the old
70s,
people, and it was more contemporary than. But 2 years later, 2.5 years later, I was working with an evangelist in Fort Worth, Texas, and I get a phone call. I don't know how they tracked me down, but they said, "Would you like to come to Nashville and try out? We remember your voice." 2 years later, and how many shows had they done? And so I loaded up my little Pinto and drove to Nashville here and tried out, sang with them, and they hired me that night. But I was 22, and honestly, it was like taking a fire hose and putting it in my mouth and just turning it on full blast. The shock of the whole thing, and the crowds, and I don't know, you can't go to college and prepare for that. It's overwhelming. And we were on the road, and Steve and John know what those years were. I mean, you're on the road 290 days a year, and you live on the road. And it just took me quite a while to adjust to it, to the whole thing of, people, you walking in, you telling you how wonderful you are, and you know better, and so, the thing between believing what they say and what was happening on the inside, I didn't think I was good enough, never did. Being raised constantly being told you're not good enough, you'll never make it, you're not worth the salt that goes on your bread, you're not worth the bullet shoot you with. I mean, this we got daily, me and my brothers. And so I remember getting with the Imperials, and we win our first Grammy. And they throw parties, the record company, and so after it's over and we go back to our hotel, and within an hour the joy's gone, because they gave it to the wrong person. I don't deserve it, I'm not good enough.
Now in my house there's been a mercy killing. The man I used to be's been crucified, and the death of this man was the final way of revealing. In the spiritual way to live, I had to die. Now if I let the dead man linger in me,
might get a little idle in my way. So I'm going down to the Celebration River, gonna take this dead man down to a water grave.
You've been remarkably transparent about your struggles, your addiction and recovery, the pain that you suffered from the church and your family. Music that you love so much, that is so under your skin and so connected to your relationship with God, when it's also so connected to that pain, how has sobriety and all these years of coming to a point where you do feel like you like yourself and you are worth it, how does that change the way you approach music now? How has your relationship to singing changed now that you're healthier and you're feeling better about Russ?
This is going to take a few minutes, but I was raised Pentecostal, and you can fast and pray and to change the situations, and you go to church, and, you know, if you do all these things, then God will do this. And when I was 26, I was in New York with my wife. Her brother played with the New York Philharmonic, and there were 3 Heinekens in the refrigerator. All my Cokes were got the Cokes and that sort of thing, and it wasn't a big taboo. You know, my brother, or the guys I'd play golf with, they'd have a beer after 18 and not have a Coke, and so I opened a can of Heineken and I drank it. I hated the taste of it. It was cold, but within 5, 6, 7 minutes, I began to feel something, and those voices got quieter. And then I had the second one, and the voices got quieter. And by the third one, the voices were silent. And I lifted my hands and I began to worship God. I can live this way. This must be the way everybody else lives. If you've watched the documentary, whatever, you know what happened after that. But at the treatment center, I'm laying there I'm just this little alcoholic, and I'm laying between 2 crack addicts that scream all night. And I'm looking up going, all I ever want to do is sing for you. That's it. And look at me, And I was angry. I was just angry. And I felt like he had abandoned me. But that 30 days, everything religious was stripped away from me. And when I left that treatment center, and if I tear, I cry. I mean, commercials, I cry. But I just said, show me who you are. I will pursue you. Just show me who you are. And I began to search. And I broke away from religion, tradition, and I want to know you. And I didn't have a lot of teachers. It was just he and I. But then music became very real and honest because I wasn't going back to, cliches and this and that. But every step I took toward him, it did something on the inside of me, our connection, And it just took day after day after learning and learning and learning that I began to see him. Mm-hmm. And I began to see how crazy in love he was with me. I never knew a God like that, that actually thought I could make it. And music began to change in me. I want to do things that are honest, that are real, and I'm not going to write songs, for them. I want to write songs that's honest to me. Mm-hmm. But that started this whole thing of real, raw honesty that these guys saw that I hadn't even really seen yet. But I don't know. That's finding that Jesus saved me, and we became good friends. We became really good friends. And I don't know, doing live concerts now, they're better than they've ever been. There's no pressure. Mm-hmm. And when you're relaxed and there's no pressure, my Lord, you connect. You're just not doing it for It's like I say, I love getting older because I don't care what you think anymore.
Right.
You know, and so I can do what's honest and real to me.
Yeah.
But that just takes the music and takes it to a different level. I'm sorry I'm talking so much, guys.
We're used to it.
Yeah.
That's good.
You are.
We'll be back with more of my conversation with Russ Taff, Steve Taylor, and John Mark Painter right after this.
Hey, this is Ray, and I'm a Patreon backer of the True Tunes podcast. I have also left a rating and review of the show at Apple Podcasts. Wasn't that hard? It didn't cost me anything. But this show means a lot to me, and I know that reviews and ratings make a big difference when it comes to how and if others discover these conversations. Would you take a few minutes, maybe even while you're listening, but please not while you're driving, to leave a rating and review? Even if you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, the reviews posted there push out to podcast platforms all around the world. Oh, and take some time to tell your friends about the show. Let's drive those numbers up together. Thanks.
We're back with Russ Taff, Steve Taylor, and John Mark Painter in a theater on the campus of Lipscomb University in Nashville. This isn't the first time you've looked to other songwriters and even unlikely songwriters, maybe for a gospel songwriter, to find inspiration. You've got a long tradition of including songs from outside the canon, as it might be, So I remember, we were talking backstage, I remember being a teenager and at first seeing Russ Taff's going to sing a song by The Call. I mean, The Call's my favorite band, maybe, and a Charlie Peacock song. This was back in the 80s.
I've been out in the cave for 40 days with only a spark to light my way. I wanna give out, I wanna give in. This is our crime, this is our sin, but I still believe, to the pain and to the grief, to the lies, to the storms, to the cries, and to the wars. Oh, I still believe.
You've been digging deep for songs, or other people have brought you songs to help you express. Tell me about your role, because you're also a songwriter. So sometimes you're writing songs and sometimes you're interpreting songs, or you're letting other songwriters give voice to what you're going through. How did this batch of songs strike you, and how did you feel about this conversation with Steve and John, and how did this come together? And let's talk about that for a little while.
We all have talked about recovery and honesty and being real, and that God is not limited to these lines in a song, or these notes. He's just there. So why don't you tell us some of the songs you brought?
Oh, well, The Cross by Prince.
Oh,
That was your idea, right?
As long as you like it.
I like
know it's me.
I like it. That was one that I'd forgotten was on Prince's Sign of the Times, and was a really good record. For some reason, when I heard it again, it felt even fresher. And John had just a really specific idea for how that was going to work, with a stand-up bass starting it out, keeping it really, really stripped down, and then he brought in a gospel choir toward the end that takes it to a whole nother level. But the dynamics of that song, I thought, were really beautiful, and I thought, Russ really delivered on that one.
Mm-hmm. Russ, tell me about that, how that song hit you, that Prince song, and were you familiar with it beforehand? And
I loved looking at that song through Prince's eyes, and it's not written by a Christian. It's written by a guy, in my opinion, that had a spiritual experience, maybe when he was younger, but that meant something to him, and he wrote about it in a way that I wouldn't write about it, but it's such an incredible lyric that's written in a way I think any songwriter would look at that and go, my gosh, you know, the way that he puts this together and the way that he talks about it, it was just brilliant. Mm-hmm. That's been part of my Prince collection for years, but I didn't think about it for this record until John brought it up, and then it made perfect sense.
And we all have our problems, and some big, some are small. Sooner all of our problems will be taken by the cross. Yeah, cross will be taken by the cross. By the cross.
Black day and stormy night, and no love, no hope in sight. Don't cry, he is coming. And don't die without knowing the cross.
I think you thought of People Are People by Depeche Mode, and I love Depeche Mode, but I do not like that song. That was my least favorite Depeche Mode single, and that was a long time before I finally came around on that one. But again, John had a vision for it, and you know, Matt Wallace, who was mixing the album and who's, you know, one of the greats, he just flipped over that version of the song and still talks about it. And it turned out beautifully. It took a long time for me to finally realize, oh yeah, I think this is gonna work.
But that's another one though. As a little kid, I remember hearing that on the radio, and hopefully Depeche Mode doesn't see this video. But yeah, it's like, I don't like that guy's voice, but man, they're smart.
Right.
Because the parts, like I would sit in my room, I was a nerd, I'd sit in my room, listen to records and figure out the bass lines and the horn parts and the background vocals and decide like, why did they do what they did? And you know, that's I still do that. And so that was the thing, is I could hear all of that in my brain. I'm like, well, Russ can sing it and it'll be cool, you know? So.
It's also a song that, when it came out, challenged all of my preconceptions of where I thought the writers and the artists that were Depeche Mode were coming from.
Right.
Because the lyric is so necessary, it's so constructive, it's so true.
Yeah.
You know, it's like they had a certain vibe that seemed like it. But then I went back and realized, actually, now that I maybe know this about them, I can go back and listen to some other things and go, oh, I think they were doing something different all along. Yeah. And I just wasn't quite hip to it.
Yeah.
And that song is particularly timely today, too.
Oh, my gosh.
So we're different colors and we're different creeds, and different people have different needs. It's obvious you hate me, though I've done nothing wrong. I've never even met you, so what could I have done? I can't understand what makes a man hate another man. Help me understand. People are people, so why should it be? You and I should get along so awfully.
And every song you brought, we didn't use.
Right, yeah, that's right. Well, I was going to bring that up.
Idea, Steve. Whose idea was it to do Demons by The National?
That's his fault.
That was my fault.
That's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a deep cut.
Well,
that was a puzzle solve, though, because we had, you know, that's the thing. It's, you don't want to just regurgitate something the same way it's been done before, and so we'd have to come up with an idea, and how can we do Russ's version? So that's the puzzle.
I think the original of that was at 7/4 or something.
Yeah,
right?
it's in a really weird time signature.
So,
it's like noisy and
right, and somehow,
but it's like it's a good song. So,
right.
yeah.
Combination of John's arrangement and Russ's voice, it turned it into a soul song.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'd had a our kind of serious discussion kind of midway through the project.
Now, you were helping me settle down my fear.
Right, yeah.
You can do this, Russ.
Right.
It's okay.
Right, yeah.
We'll erase it if it's terrible.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
And it was a really good conversation. It was emotional. And I got home that night, and then The National is one of my favorite bands, and I thought, whoa, what about Demons? And I sent it to Russ and was like, what do you think? And he was like immediate, yep, got to do this one. So that was the last song that came to the album. And it's, one of my favorites the way it turned out.
And let me talk about when he sent me the song, and when you're in recovery and, God's putting your life back together. He's putting your marriage back together. And there are just some triggers that you just fall back into old patterns, that and fear can be triggered just like that. And that conversation that Steve and I had, where I lost ground. Fear just, and I had spent so much time in recovery, but man, just like that, I had lost, 20 steps back there. And when he sent me that lyric, it's like, God, how quickly we can fall back to where we were 5 years ago, and we worked really hard, but then something will trigger it, and we just lose ground. But when Steve sent me the song, I mean, first of all, just the title, man, I don't want to do a song about demons. But as I began to listen to it, like he knew I would, and I began to see myself, that's what I just did.
Right.
That's what I just did, and that's what he just saw me do. So he sent me that lyric, and look at that, and I was like, that's just what I did. I lost sight of who I was, I lost sight of what I'm trying to do, and I'm scared. And so I lost 5 years of moving forward. But no, that song, that's exactly what happened to me, but it opened my eyes for the next time it happens, and for the next time it happens, to just hold my ground and not freak out because I get scared.
I sincerely try to love it. I wish that I could rise above it. So I stay down with my demons. I stay down with my demons. I stay down with my demons.
This is a really fantastic set list of songs, because some of them, Ordinary World, these Duran Duran, it's like you look at it on paper and you're like, what? And then when you hear it, you're like, yep, there you go, that one works too. But then others, Bill Withers, Grandma's Hands, you go, yeah, that one was just sitting there waiting. So tell me about
that
some
one,
of them.
because you came up with.
Was that your idea?
I think, right?
Yeah, I had looked at it prior, just when I came across it, because the only thing peaceful and solid in my life was my grandmother.
Oh.
And you couldn't talk outside the family, but she knew what was going on, and I would go over and sit on her porch, and she was this little Pentecostal woman, kind of plump, and I would talk to her and tell her how scared I was, and she would comb her hair long, that came down to her waist, long gray hair, and she would say, son, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But she was my only place that I could take all this stuff. But when I heard Bill, do that song years ago, and it was like, that's my grandma, and then we began to just kind of change the lyric to make it more about my grandmother. And then his track to that, his track to that was just, it made it happen. It just really made it happen, the way he approached the production of the whole thing. But yeah.
Grandma's hands clapped in church on Sunday morning. Grandma's hands, she played that tambourine so well. Grandma's hands used to issue out a warning. She'd say, Russell, don't you run so fast. Might fall on a piece of glass, and there might be snakes there in the grass. Grandma's hands.
If I Had My Way, I'd Tear This Building Down is one of my favorite songs.
I love the way the album starts with that song. His voice is growly and low, and we've not heard him sing that way before. I hadn't. Mm-mm. And then the thrill of it is, it's just a slow burn until he starts going up and up and starts tearing the building down. And just thinking about it, I get chills, because I just think that whole song and the way he sings it and the way it builds and the way John just put the right things around it to just to take it into something extraordinary.
Delilah was a woman so fine and fair. She had lovely good looks and cool black hair. Delilah came down on Samson's mind. At first he saw a woman of the Philistine. She sat down on Samson's knees. She said, tell me where your strength lies, if you please. She spoke so fine and talked so fair. Samson told Delilah, cut off my hair. Shave my head as clean as my hand, and my strength will be like a natural man. She took old Samson by surprise. They picked up a stick and they poked out his eyes. They brought him down to the judgment hall and chained him to a stone cold wall. They left him there till his hair was brown. Samson tore that building down. Samson tore that building down. I said if I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, I would tear this building down. I said if I had my way, if I had my way, if I had my way, I would tear this building down. Tear this building down. Tear this building down. Tear this building down.
We're going to step away from this conversation for just a moment, but we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Matt from Philadelphia, and I'm a Patreon supporter of the True Tunes podcast. One thing I've done, and I know it makes a big difference for True Tunes, is to sign up for the email list at truetunes.com. It might not seem like a big deal, and it's really easy to do, but it's more important than ever for them to be able to communicate with us without having to pay middlemen like Facebook or Instagram. I know that John has some big ideas brewing, and having the ability to let us know is going to be pivotal to the success of those ideas. It's easy to do. Just find the link at the upper right corner of the homepage at truetunes.com, and voila. Make sure to check for the confirmation message and respond. It can also help if you add jjt@truetunes.com to your contacts so that the messages from John don't get caught in your spam filter. Who knows? You might even win a free record, poster, or t-shirt just for being on the list. Thanks.
And we're back.
Don't ever change, God. He always will be God. God in the middle of the ocean, God in the middle of the sea. By the help of the great Creator, He truly been God to me. I know God. He don't ever change.
You, John, are an accomplished musician. I mean, you can play, I don't even know how many instruments you can play. It freaks
Pretty
me
much
out.
everything.
As long
John
as
plays.
one's
terrifying.
as long as they're not watching me while I do it.
Well, as a person who could play any instrument, I think you're self-deprecating in your nature,
Well, I have
but you
friends
did.
that
You have a
actually
lot of
play
restraint,
stuff.
right. But I'm saying you had a lot of restraint on this. Were we gonna start with like framing the vocal and then only put in the necessary thing?
I mean, for me, I would hear what he does, and this is nerdy engineering stuff, but you hear frequencies that someone's making.
Right.
Well, if you're doing that same frequency on something else at the same moment, now you can't hear that other one. So that was the thing. It's like figuring out what stays out of the way, what props him up when he needs to be supported. Don't do anything that, I deleted a lot more stuff than we kept. It's like
Right.
nope, that. So it's.
Yeah.
That's I don't know, I would hear records as a kid that did that, and I was like, how did they do that? And I'd sit and listen to it, and it wasn't just get great players to play the right notes and show off, it's they're making dumb noises that support the other dumb noises,
And you used students on this too, right? I mean,
some
tell me
singers
about
that are on there are Lipscomb kids, that I've, Kelly Cates is the one singing a lot of the high stuff that's on there. And I think I met her when she was probably 9 or 10 years old.
Oh, really?
And she would come to Fleming's kids singing camps. And when she was a little kid, I was like, she's really good. And so, yeah, there are people like that. You see what they do and what they're and again, you see what someone's capable of. How can I use the dumb noise that they're able to make to support what's going on? Mm-hmm. And so that, so I said it's puzzle solving for me. I draw graphs of the songs and the dynamic levels and where am I going to make things go away. And I'm a nerd, but.
And Steve, this, like I saw Alex and Grace Fincher from River and Rail, they did some stuff on this, and they're part of this Imagine House project, that's this label that's coming out. So as the executive producer that's pulling this together, how did you conceive of this coming together at Lipscomb? Like, what was the thinking of bringing? You said somebody came up with some money to do the original recording, but then you pull it into Lipscomb and you pull John. And tell me about how this all comes together.
Yes, so we've started a production playground at Lipscomb called Imagine House, and Bart Millard, our mutual friend, was also part of the inception and bringing it all together. And the idea was you've got a university, you've got a what's becoming a really extraordinary entertainment and the arts college within that university. How do you take different elements that how we're collaborating, and maybe some faculty members who are practitioners as well, and bring some things together to create a better project than if you were just doing it in a traditional way. And so that was part of it. It was funded by a contribution of a fan of Russ who made a contribution to the college that we could use to make the album. John, of course, I've known forever, but we also worked together here at the college. He found certain students that would be just right for the project, along with other professionals that we used, and even in ultimately making music videos and some pieces for social media and things like that, we're going to be using students as well to help out with that, because they're being overseen by professionals, and we know when we get it right.
Let's talk about Ordinary World. Duran Duran. I was not a big fan of Duran Duran in the 80s. Ordinary World was actually a song that made me reconsider Duran Duran, and I had to go back and kind of think about them a little bit more seriously.
What attracted you to that song? You brought it to the...
I think it was...
Oh, did you bring it to...
fault.
Yeah,
oh, no, okay,
so.
yeah. What was about that you think that would fit this record and me? And
Well, the lyrics, and just, I don't know, I just had a vision in my head of how it might sound, and we experimented a little bit, and it's like we didn't want to erase it.
No, that's right.
Once you got into it, Russ, how did it feel to you?
Well, again, everything goes back to the miracle that happened in my life and sobriety, but for years I looked for that, what I call ordinary, but it's beautiful. And it's magical, and it's what you're always trying to find. And when I heard that song, I've searched for that world, finally found it. It's what I've always looked for. To me, that's like, what happens at the end of this journey for me, of all that I've been through. And I found this world that's just ordinary and beautiful. And it doesn't have to fireworks going off and that sort of thing. But for me, it was like sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee with Tori, and just finding and letting go of all this other stuff to find this place of freedom.
I won't cry for yesterday. There's an ordinary world. Somehow I have to find the ordinary world. And as I try to make my way through the ordinary world, I will learn to survive.
Sound of Silence. Tell me about the choice to do that one.
If you've ever had your life just out of control and you're hiding, and you're terrified people will find out what's going on, and it was such a familiar place. Mm-hmm. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again, and it just, that place that I lived for a long time, that it was just me, silent, in this dark place, but it became familiar. And it took a while to let the light in, and to let people see what was going on. So when I see that, hello, darkness, my old friend, I was in that hotel room by myself, hoping nobody would find out what I was doing and just getting drunk. But that was part of me, So when I heard that song, and it was Troy's idea to bring that one to there, but it was like another part of my life of darkness and pain. And but when I heard it, it was like, yes, that's another side of me that I haven't talked about a whole lot, but a lot of people know what it's like to feel abandoned and alone, and then it becomes familiar. It's like my whole life I've carried shame, and I can put that coat on so fast.
And people bowed their heads and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. The sign said the words of the prophets are written on subway walls and tenement halls, and whisper the sound of silence, the sound.
The Dylan song, I Believe in You. I mean, oh man, this is a hard freaking song. Yeah. So tell me about the Dylan song.
John brought that. That's one I stopped and cried about 3 times when I was trying to sing it.
Yeah.
Because I told John when we were doing it, and several times I just had to stop, and kind of wipe my tears and go to the bathroom and kind of get it together and come back, because this image that I have, and what happened to me when I was 15, is I had made a decision to follow Jesus. But the guys that I had grown up with since kindergarten, and we had been buddies through all of that, but they started, experimenting, women, drugs, that whole thing, and I can't do it anymore, And one of them got mad at me and came into the bathroom, a big guy, and threw me against the wall. You're no better than us. You're just no better than us. And I was trying to explain to him that I can't do that anymore. I mean, because I believe in you. That lyric just, it takes me back when I said, I will follow Christ. I will follow Christ. And my friends got angry at me and didn't understand. And they felt abandoned, but I was fighting for me, and but that decision when I was 15 has carried me through other times in my life when I had to make decisions.
I believe in you when winter turns to summer. I believe in you when white turns to black. I believe in you even though I be outnumbered. May shake me off, though my friends forsake me, even that won't make me go back. Don't let me change my heart, keep me set apart from all the plans I do pursue, and I don't mind the pain I don't mind the driving rain. I know I will sustain, 'cause I believe in you.
The last two are both kind of a departure, because you've got two songs that do fit a little bit more into the sacred space. This beautiful Andy Gullahorn song, I Will, which when I first heard you do it, I was like, I know this song. I've heard this song. But I had to actually go look through my library and go, like, where do I know this from? Like, it wasn't front of mind. And and I was like, oh yeah, that's Gullahorn's song. So tell me about that one. Like, where did that song come from?
You brought that one, didn't you?
Yeah, actually, I had contacted my friend Mark Nichols, who works in publishing and who has really good taste. And I told him what we were doing. I said, you got any ideas? So Mark Nichols came up with both Andy Gullahorn's I Will, and then he also came up with the idea of recording All the Poor and Powerless.
I Will. I just keep going back to recovery, but that's such a part of my story and everything else. But you are isolated and alone, and you have to learn how to be a friend again. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to learn how to be a husband again, and to let people close, to let family close, that you would commit your life for them, you know. And if you need someone to cry with you, I will. Right. If you need someone just to hold you, I will. If you need somebody just to talk to about what's going on in your home, you know, I'm there for you. Right. And I learned what a friend was, you know. And then if you need someone to die for you, I will. Right. And to me, that greater love has no man than to lay down his life for his friend. And I had to learn that. But when I did, it was just an incredible lesson of relationships and commitment. And is that just that simple thing? I'm your friend. I love you. I'll go to hell and back with you. But that one is quite powerful for me.
The truth is, we're gonna take a last breath. That's not the only sad death we are meant to fear. But if you need a friend to do some dying with you, I'll be there. But if you need someone who will just cry with you, I will.
And All the Poor and Powerless. I've told people for a few years, I'm like, yeah, you might not like Christian music, but listen to this song. like this might be one that you might like. Were you familiar with that song before this?
It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago. But when Steve brought it back, I had forgotten about it. But man, why am I crying so much?
They're deeply emotional songs.
Gosh, these songs are just.
Yeah.
They are. These songs just hit so deep. You don't know that you're holy.
Right.
You don't know that you're good.
Right.
And but I am. Mm-hmm. You know, I am the righteousness of God. I am forgiven. Right. And when I sing that song, I'm saying to the world, I'm his beloved. You know, he's made me holy. He's made me whole. And I will sing for him the rest of my life because of the miracle that he's done in me.
Yes. And it's beautiful to end this project. You've taken us on this journey, which for me, as I've listened through it so many times, I get to All the Poor and Powerless, and I'm singing along with it. And I've led that song as a worship leader, and I've sung it with congregations. I've sung it with small groups in my home. I just led it at this little church we go to recently. And I just love that song. But when I get to the end of that song, I can handle going back to the first song again and saying, if I had my way. Like, it's just a loop that I can handle. It's a liturgy, that I can handle going through. So,
and that was a funny one too, because we had, we had a little bit more of a typical power ballad arrangement going on, and it was covering up Russ's mojo, and I'm like, nope. So we started ditching stuff, and then that's when it felt like the end of the record. It felt like that's the way you wrap it up. So.
But man, to bring that choir in,
yeah, they were fine.
It takes you to glory.
And all the poor and powerless, and all that's lost and lonely, and all the thieves will come confess, and know that you are holy, and know that you are holy, and all will sing out hallelujah, and we will cry out hallelujah.
And then there's a Kickstarter piece as well. So how does that factor into all this?
So the album was too good to just release and hope for the best. And so this was not Russ's idea. This was my idea. Is like, let's put together vinyl, but let's do it through a Kickstarter campaign so that we could actually get enough money, not to make the album. The album's already made, but let's figure out a way to make enough money so we can actually take this to a broader audience. Because I just think there's a lot of people. In the Soft White Underbelly interview that Russ did with Mark Leda a few months ago, that's now been seen by over 400,000 people and gotten a crazy amount of comments. Like, people have really responded to it. It was obvious that Russ was really touching a chord with his story. And since we've called this album Cover Story, because it's Russ's story told through cover songs, how do we find a way to take Russ's story to a bigger audience? Well, let's do the Kickstarter and make enough money so we can actually hire some marketing people and some of the elements that, we used back in the day when I had Squint Entertainment, my record label, and even use some of the same people that helped break Sixpence None The Richer and Kiss Me.
What I love about this project, and I really want to throw some props your way, Russ, is you're leveraging your legacy, the work you've done for all these years, into a project that I think has the potential to reach much farther and wider than anything you've previously done, but also to reach back to all of the people that are like, I imagine every Russ Taff fan that's ever heard anything you've done is going to love this record, but there's millions of other people that will have also loved Bill Withers and all this other stuff that will also like this record, that might not have ever heard Russ Taff, because Christian music lived in this little bubble kind of underground that was really only marketed to Christians. Gospel music and American roots music, everybody loves that, so, well, at least lots of people love that. So I'm excited about that. When you go back and listen to this now that it's been finished for a little while and you've lived with it, you come back today and you play a song for some students. What's the difference between the day of panic and insecurity and doubt and Steve saying he wouldn't let you embarrass yourself? How do you feel about it now? How do you feel about these songs and your performances, and what are the emotions that you feel as you engage with this thing now?
I am so proud of this, that I would be able to make a real creative record again. I mean, something that is just off the charts of things, and to be able to, at where I'm at in my life, to be handed this gift that I could do something that's so creative and honest and real. I just feel so blessed. But the songs, once I was done and I got back away from it, and it's like, my gosh, that song and that song and that's that part of my life, and I went through that, and so you just see the hand of God through the whole thing, but it's a piece of art, and I don't know what else to use, but you look at it and you go, oh man, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I'm the most blessed guy in the world. First of all, that these two would say, we will help you. But the songs are just my life.
Go on and scream it from the mountains, and go on and tell it to the masses that He is God.
I want to thank Russ, Steve, and John for taking time with us today and for allowing us to provide you with this early listen to these amazing songs. And again, depending on when you hear this, you may still have time to get in on the Kickstarter campaign. It ends on Monday, September 9th, 2024. So head to Kickstarter and search for Russ Taff cover story, or find the link on the show notes page for this episode. As we wrap this up, I know we've already covered a lot of ground, but I stumbled upon an idea as the interview was happening that has been rattling around in my head over the last few days, and that is the difference between framing something, someone, in the most flattering light and truly honoring them. What I sincerely loved about the way Rick Rubin produced those final Johnny Cash albums, and this is what I feel John and Steve have done with Russ, is that Johnny was truly honored. His essence was allowed to shine through, and that included his age and frailty. As Rubin honored Johnny in that way, I believe he honored Johnny's creator as well. We now have the tools to airbrush out the wrinkles and auto-tune the vocals, and in our youth-obsessed culture, we are often tempted to do just that. We want to take the edge off all of those things that remind us of our mortality and the pain of death. Addiction, in many ways, and in all of its forms, be it alcohol and drugs, or social media, scrolling and shopping, or pornography and gambling, is usually just a way to medicate, to take the edge off some kind of pain. We all struggle with some kind of pain, physical, emotional, spiritual, and Lord knows we have plenty of options available to take the edge off. But it never works. The pain is still there, as is the mortality. The filters and frames are just lies anyway. But great art, true art, can take us higher than any drug. I have long felt that the power of a good, true song and the transcendence of a great performance is that it connects us to that divine place where death and pain have no power. When I first heard Russ Taff sing, I was just a kid. I might not have been the right demographic for the Imperials or even for his first solo work, but that voice, it took me somewhere. And when I heard him sing, I felt that he had been in the same dark places I had. His voice came from that cave, and it felt real. It shook me free. I remember when my band was recording our first real project in a real studio and Rick Elias was producing us, I was getting ready to do my vocals. He asked me if everything sounded good in my headphones. I asked him to find the button in that fancy control room that could make me sound like Russ Taff. He said, "You're gonna have to go through a lot more stuff before you sound like Russ Taff, kid." There was no plug-in or effect to get me there. Russ Taff has been doing this for more than half a century now. He found his way clear of the cave. I sure hope this project raises the money it needs and more, because this is Hall of Fame type stuff. This is the kind of story everyone needs to hear. This goes way beyond Christian music or even gospel music. There is no genre here. There is no age. This is just raw, unvarnished, transcendent humanity. And I am eternally grateful to Russ and to Steve and John for bringing it to us. It reminds me to turn the filters down and let the cracks show through. That's where the light not only comes in, that's where it gets out. This is how you honor not only Russ Taff, but the spark of human beauty placed in each of us. Okay, I'm climbing off my soapbox now. That's going to do it for this episode of the podcast. Thanks again to Russ Taff, Steve Taylor, John Mark Painter, and special thanks to the women who have given these men the grace and support to be able to share their gifts with the world. Tori Taff, Debbie Taylor, and Fleming McWilliams, we honor you. And a big thanks also to Matt Huseman and the film department at Lipscomb University for recording this conversation. There's actually more to this, by the way, including some great video. And those who back this project on Kickstarter will be the first to have access to this conversation in full HD video form. So, you know what to do. I also want to send a special shout out to our Patreon backers. We could not do this without your help and support. If you would like to join the group, head over to patreon.com/truetunes, or if you'd like to give us a one-time gift, you can find the PayPal link on the show notes page. And thank you for doing all the other stuff, leaving us the ratings and reviews at Apple Podcasts, sign up for the email list, and subscribing to the weekly Spotify mixtape. And thank you to our friends who have helped curate the mix lately as I've been so busy with my other work. And please remember, Spotify and Apple, great places to discover new music, do it. But once you discover an artist that you love, please support those artists with your dollars and your attention, like this Russ Taff Kickstarter. This podcast was produced and written by me, JJT, with co-production, editing, and sound design by Bruce A. Brown for Gyroscope Productions. Our theme song is a special instrumental mix of Full Circle by Phil Keggy and Rex Paul. The contents of this program are protected by U.S. copyright law and are the intellectual property of Gyroscope Productions, with the exception of songs or clips that are from previously copywritten materials. Everything on this episode is used by permission or under fair use provisions. This program is intended for the private use of our listening audience. Gyroscope Productions can be reached at jjt@truetunes.com or P.O. Box 60401, Nashville, Tennessee 37206. Until next time, this is JJT reminding you to stay tuned and stay true. Peace.
All right.
You're really good, John.
Yeah, John.
You're really, really
Well done.
good. So, he makes me want to talk.